This is Marco Palmero. In this video, I want to discuss with you why it's such a high ROI activity to outsource deal generation or deal origination if you are a search fund, an entrepreneur through acquisition, or even a private equity firm with a very, very tiny team. Now, I want to discuss why this is such a high ROI decision with an example. And I'm going to break it down and I'm going to explain to you with math why this is the case. So let's say that you are a search fund and you're looking at deals. You want to close your first deal to validate the idea. And you're splitting your time between different activities and you haven't committed 100% towards the project yet. So you might be allocating around 4 hours a day towards that project. You're doing it part time. Now, you might say, okay, I'm allocating part of that time towards finding deals and part of that time towards negotiating deals and finding investors for my deals. Now, of course, in the beginning, a lot of your time is going to go towards finding deals because first you got to have the opportunities. But as you progress, you might realize that you're juggling multiple tasks at once and you're not really able to keep up with the time that is required to negotiate and close the deals that you have in the pipeline. But at the same time, you're struggling because if you don't keep your pipeline full, and something goes wrong for one reason or another, you're not going to have more deals coming through. And as a consequence, you're going to need to start the process all over again. So what happens is you realize that you're investing a lot of time in activities that don't generate ROI, and you would like to invest more into the ones that actually deliver results, but you can't do that. And so if we were to continue my explanation here, we would say, okay, I'm investing 4 hours. Let's say that 4 hours are invested towards finding deals, not even negotiating deals or finding investors, just allocated towards finding the deals. That's give or take 100 hours per month, right? Worth of effort that you put in. 100 hours a month, okay? Now, that's quite a lot of time, right? And the problem with this is how much is your time really worth? Or what kind of return can you generate when you close a deal if you invest these 100 hours towards closing investors or transactions? Now, let's make an example. Let's say that you talk with somebody that can take care of deal origination for you, or lead generation, if we want to call it this way and simplify it. And say, okay, I talk with somebody that can oversee the process and generate leads for me. So I talk with somebody that can generate leads for, let's say, $5,000 a month, right? Retainer. Now, in the beginning, a lot of people might say, well, that's a very expensive price. Well, that's, of course, there will be an argument for that. But what kind of return are you getting for freeing up 100 hours of your time? The point I want to get across here is, okay, you talk with somebody that says, okay, I'm going to charge you 3, 5, 10,000. It doesn't matter. We use 5,000 just to simplify the math. It's going to charge you 5,000 a month retainer for finding you deals predictably. Now, what happens is that for $5,000, you are fundamentally freeing up, freeing up 100 hours of time that you can then allocate towards closing deals and investors, right? So the point I want to closing, let's say negotiating and closing deals, right? So what does this mean? Is that fundamentally you are buying your time back so that you can allocate these 100 hours towards high ROI activities that are going to generate you more than the $5,000 that you're spending. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you invest these $100 and you close a deal for 500K. How much every single hour has generated you? Well, $5,000 in that case, right? Because we have 500K divided by 100. Now you might say, Marco, I'm not going to close a deal in a month. It might be true, it might not be true, it really depends. But let's just say, for the sake of this example, that it takes you, let's say it takes you 5 months to close a deal worth 500K, right? Now, what it means is that fundamentally you allocated 500 hours worth of time, right? 500 hours worth of time, because you invested you freed up 100 hours a month per 5 months is 500 hours. You invested 500 hours of time to generate 500K because you bought the business, okay? So how much, what's the ROI? I mean, let's put it, what's the ROI on your time? Yeah? Or the return on your time. Let's just simplify it. What's the ROI? Well, it's 500K divided by 500. Basically, you generated, every hour you spend towards generating the deal and closing the deal was worth $1,000. Now, the interesting point here is how much you invested in terms of capital for generating the leads that ultimately close the deal for you. Well, it's actually quite simple. We do, following this example, I invested 5,000 to generate the leads per month, right? 5,000 per month over 5 months equals $25,000, right? To generate 500K worth of company that I bought. What's the return on that? Well, it's 20 times, right? So I generated 20 times return by outsourcing the deal origination process for 5,000 a month, right? Now I want to rerun you through this because I think it's important. So when you are investing most of your time towards finding deals, you're fundamentally keeping yourself from the high ROI activities that are closing deals and closing investors, because those are the only two things that really matter when you're looking to close a transaction. And if you're doing something else, you're sacrificing the most important thing in your business. And so if you spend $100 a month finding deals, you're sacrificing a potential transaction of 500K or even more than that, because maybe you're looking at deals worth $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. Now, when you decide to outsource this for 5,000 a month, you might say, okay, that's a heavy expense, but what is the return that I can get on that? Well, I can free 100 hours of time that I can use to close deals, be in front of deals, be in front of investors negotiating, and then getting this deal done. So I'm investing a little bit of capital upfront to generate more hours for myself, and then allocate those hours, spend these units of time towards an activity that is going to make me tremendously more money, right? Because again, if I invest 500 hours of time to generate 500K, I basically generated $1,000 every hour I worked. Instead, if I were to just, uh, keep looking at deals and hoping to find one, my time would be worth a lot less, because fundamentally, if I'm spending all my time finding deals and I'm spending 100 hours on that, and I'm refusing to pay 5,000, for example, what I'm saying is that, 5,000 is worth more than my 100 hours. So I'm basically saying that every single hour I'm paying myself less than $50, which is ridiculous, right? Instead, when I understand that there are things that are more important than generating deal flow and generating opportunities, I get that with a tiny investment, I can then focus all my attention on closing what really matters, which is the deal that is going to make all the process worth it for me. And keep in mind, I mentioned here a small deal, 500K. It's a relatively small deal in enterprise value. If you do $1 million deal, $2 million deal, $5 million deal, this return becomes, insane. And so the point I want to drive home here is outsourcing deal origination makes tons of sense, because if the goal is to close deals, then it's going to make it all worth it for you. Now, in terms of time that is going to take you, you might say, well, Marco, it's not going to take me 5 months to close the deal. It might take me more. Yeah, fine. Let's say it takes you 10 months, right? So we keep the same example, right? And say, okay, it's going to take me 10 months to do that. Okay, now I invested 50K in outsourcing lead generation to generate 500K. Now the return, I made 10x, the money. And so it's a no-brainer, even in that case. And you can play with these numbers, but the point is 5,000 a month retainer is just an example. And of course, 500K deal is an example. Those are two variables. But the point is, as you realize how much time you're allocating towards finding deals, you will also realize that there are activities that are worth much more and that you can spend your time on. And you can then free that time by paying a little bit of money somebody else that can help you with the process. And that's exactly what we do, right? It's what we help people with, what we help search funds, entrepreneurs through acquisitions, even PE, VC funds. With a tiny commitment and a tiny investment from their end, they get to focus all their time on what really matters, and we take care of all the rest, which is deal origination, lead generation from that matter, so that they can ultimately make more money. Because the point is, if I'm closing deals that are this size, this initial investment becomes irrelevant, right? And that's fundamentally the process and the thought process that I didn't go through when I first started my journey. I thought, that I could do everything myself, but I didn't realize that my time was actually worth a lot more than I could imagine, right? It was actually much better for me to just focus all my attention on taking meetings with motivated sellers and investors rather than doing anything else. And instead, I was spreading my attention, spreading myself too thin. I was juggling multiple tasks at once. And I didn't realize that some tasks were worth $25, $30 an hour. Others were worth thousands of dollars an hour. And I should have allocated my time towards the second. And so if you are a search fund, an entrepreneur through acquisition, private equity with a very tiny team, any kind of company looking at deals, looking at acquisitions, and you're thinking about outsourcing the process, think about it in these terms. How much can I generate if I focus my attention on something that is much more important than finding deals? And then you can you can backtrack what you need to do and also what you need to invest in order to make the whole process worthwhile for you. Hopefully this makes sense. And if you're interested in outsourcing deal flow and deal origination, we do have a team that can support you with that. We do it across countries, geographies, industries. We do it in basically any sector. We generally target companies below $50, $75 million in ticket size. So our target is ideally search funds, entrepreneurs through acquisitions, small private equity firms, even companies that are looking to buy additional assets. But the point is, we're simplifying this process for them, and we're making the whole thing a lot easier, because once they know they can get leads in a predictable way, then they can focus all their attention on what matters: negotiating, closing, and potentially finding the capital to close the deals if they don't have it already. So if you're interested in that, there will be a link below. You can click it and book a time to speak with us. discuss a little bit more about how we can help you, if we can help you, because we might not be able to help you. And yeah, that's basically it.